Good evening. Welcome to Truth Seekers. I'm Mike Fishkin. Seated next to me is Jay Saylor. If you've seen our program before, you know the Truth Seekers is all about evidence. But tonight we're going to take a little departure from the typical type of evidence that we usually give that indicates there's one way spiritually to achieve what we all would hope for spiritually. And that is through Jesus Christ. As those of you who watched before know that that's where we come from. I come out of a Jewish background, was into Eastern religion, psychology, philosophy. Jay comes from a Roman Catholic background. We've both seen the errors of traditional Judaism and Catholicism and know that being born again, having a relationship with Jesus is the only way to God and is proven by prophecy and all sorts of evidence that the Bible gives, archaeologically as well as other things showing that it's true. And we love to talk about other religions, other spiritualities, and why they fall short and why only Jesus is the door, the only door to God and to eternity. You know, a lot of talk in our culture, of course, about the breakdown of the economy, you know, what's going to happen to this country and everything like that. And we've heard for the last 50 years about separation of church and state. And that's totally divorced from the meaning that the Founding Fathers had about church and state and any separation that would occur. We're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about a little bit about the difference between a democracy and a republic. We were set up as a republic, not a democracy, but as long as I can remember, Jay, all we hear, isn't it correct, that we're going to export democracy to the rest of the world, and what a great thing democracy is. Benjamin Franklin had a definition of democracy, and his definition of democracy was two wolves and a lamb sitting down for dinner and voting on what they're going to eat. Some other comments about democracy by our Founding Fathers. Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration of Independence. A simple democracy is one of the greatest of evils. But of course, we're exporting democracy, and we are a democracy. John Quincy Adams, the experience of all former ages had shown that of all human governments, democracy was the most unstable, fluctuating, and short-lived. John Quincy Adams. Noah Webster, in democracy, there are commonly tumults and disorders. Therefore, a pure democracy is generally a very bad government. It is often the most tyrannical government on earth. It is often the most tyrannical government. James Madison, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Property, you know, under the Bush administration, of course it's worse now, naturally. But they're all moving in the same direction to a one world order. We're against the whole movement of these governments in the world today because they're against the God of the Bible and the Creator. But notice he talks about the rights of property. You know, now courts take away people's houses to build bigger houses, tear yours down, build a bigger one, because they can get more tax money from it. That's not what was intended when they were going to, you know, the rights of public domain was, you know, put a railroad through or something necessary for the whole community, not to make more money on property taxes because they've got a bigger house after they tear yours down so they can get more money in the coffers for the community. That's nonsense. Just like the concept of separation of church and state has been turned on its head, totally contradictory to what was meant originally. So if you wonder what's going wrong with this country, that's it. But you know, as Christians, the Bible predicts that men are going to do their own thing in the long run, unfortunately. Straight is the way, narrow the path, Jesus said. And few there be that find it. You know, he said very few are going to find it. And you have to really want truth, and you have to really be willing to go against the flow to be a true Christian and follow the Lord. A lot of Christianity is just false. I mean, you watch TBN, what a lot of nonsense, this whole laughing movement. You know, Benny Hinn, and he wasn't involved in the laughing movement that much, but Rodney Howard-Browne was, and now we've got Todd Bentley, those guys. totally off the wall, contrary to biblical Christianity. We have films about that on YouTube and off our website, which you can get to from truthseekers.ws. We've done over 200 programs in the last 5.5 years, and so we've covered a lot of ground. And we love to talk to people about truth, for those who are interested. If you're not, fine. You're going to meet God anyhow. It'll be unfortunate if you meet Him without searching for Him with all your heart. Couple more quotes here, and then we'll get to Richard. John Adams. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. So why do our presidents constantly talk about democracy? Are they unaware of all this? I doubt it. I seriously doubt they're unaware that these comments were made. A republic is built on fixed laws. And as Francis Schaeffer, one of the greatest Christian theorists and just a great Christian guy who died in 1984, shared, that we were going to go eventually towards dictatorship. As these men said, a pure democracy will usually end in dictatorship. That's the direction it goes, unless it's built on fixed laws. And Schaeffer used the term an absolute, that society has to be built on absolutes. And these guys built all of our Constitution, everything, based on biblical law and the God of the Bible giving the whole directions for the way society should live and be laid out. And so as we deviate from that, things are just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's just the way it is. We thought we'd share that in at least one program, that we're aware. A lot of people say, well, you Christians, you just live in Pollyanna, thinking about heaven. We know what's going on with all this stuff. The Bible makes that very clear, what happens to societies that ignore God and His commandments. One more thing on this, Jay, that I want to share. This is interesting. The U.S. War Department had a definition that it put out in 1928, 156 pages, on the difference between democracy and republic. This is a short thing on democracy. A government of the masses, authority derived through mass meeting or any other form of direct expression, results in mobocracy. Attitude toward property is communistic, negating property rights. Attitude toward laws that the will of the majority shall regulate, whether it's based upon deliberation or governed by passion, prejudice, impulse, without restraint or regard to consequence, results in demagogism, license, agitation, discontent, and anarchy. Now that's democracy, and that went from 1928 until about 1947, quite a long time, that it was put out throughout all the branches of our services, Army, Navy, Air Force. And then around 1947, FDR yanked it and replaced it with something that said this: